And we're back, folks, for another edition of the Michigan Basketball Insider. It's always interesting this time of year, more so as we get deeper into the portal era, as Michigan has always had some question marks, but none more so than this particular offseason, and nor have things moved as fast in the past. So a lot to react to in this episode. Folks, you know how we do it every single time I sit down with a guy that I like to hear from. I don't care if there was no audience. I'd like to sit and talk to my man, Tim McCormick. He was a big fella at the University of Michigan that roamed the middle in the early to mid 80s before becoming a first round draft pick, playing in the NBA for a decade, going on to be one of the best commentators in the land, college or pro, and also doing great work still to this day with the NBA Players Association, none other than my guy, Tim McCormick. Tim, how are you?
I'm great, and I find this so fascinating. You know, the NFL has now become year round, right? The NBA is year round. They've got the playoffs, and that goes right into summer league and the draft, and now college basketball is doing the same thing. And Sam, I know you're here today with the tough questions, right? About how Michigan will respond to the loss of their best three players. What does the starting lineup look like? Is Caleb Love coachable? Should Jalen Llewellyn return? Will Michigan play in the NCAA? I have no answers, Sam. It's only some
I look at you
questions.
asking all the questions and saying you have no answers before
I
I
have
even
no
get
answers. No, I have some educated guesses, maybe. But I think the big one is Michigan better off now than they were a month ago when they lost in the second round in the NIT? And once again, I don't know. The answer is impossible to address because there's so much speculation and uncertainty. And this is just a new era. And I can't really figure it out. I'm not comfortable with it. And Sam, when I was a freshman, I learned from the upperclassmen. You know, I watched the juniors and the seniors. And when I was an upperclassman, I was ready to learn. Today, we've got 20% of college basketball players are in the transfer portal. And every year, coaches, they go shopping. You know, what do we need? We're like an NBA team, right? We have a couple guys returning, but we need a couple free agents. We have to go into the draft. And I don't have good answers, but I think it's fun to try to guess and speculate. And all of a sudden, college basketball is a year-round thing.
no doubt. All right, so let's start off first talking about the departures. You and I in the last episode both predicted Jet would be gone. He actually jumped to the NBA later that same day. We got done with the podcast, and like an hour later, Jet was in the draft. Neither of us were surprised by that. But before Kobe's decision, and you wonder if Kobe was maybe impacted, maybe he wasn't. But before Kobe announced his decision, came where the Hunter Dickinson had entered the portal. Full disclosure, I asked Hunt to come on. He said, hey, I'm not really talking right now. I haven't really talked to anyone about it. Said, you and Tim really stand up. He was really complimentary of you, Tim, and other podcasts, but just kind of wants to do his thing without really talking about it right now. So we're left to speculate on some things. I want to stipulate that at the beginning. You wonder if did he catch wind that Kobe's jumping, or did Kobe kind of see that Hunter's going in the portal, and did either of their decisions affect the other? Because Kobe's to the draft and Hunter's in the portal, and we don't know. Does that guarantee he's going to land someplace else, Tim? Or is there a possibility that he returns to Michigan?
I'm laughing, Sam, because I texted him too. We double teamed him. And okay, so I'm going to start off by saying this. I think Hunter Dickinson returns to Michigan. I really do. And he didn't tell me anything, but the fact that he returned your text and my text immediately tells me something. And if I was planning on leaving, I would probably cut off a lot of the relationships that are kind of on the surface, on the periphery. He got right back to us. It doesn't mean a lot, but it's something. I keep thinking about Hunter Dickinson at Wisconsin wearing the ski mask like he's the criminal. And I think that he plays with people a little bit. He has fun. He's a little bit goofy. He's a little bit, cutting edge. He's always looking to do something different. So why did he go into the transfer portal? There's like 5 or 6 reasons, and I don't know the answer to any of them, but I will say one of them is I think he wants to make another statement to Michigan about the transfer portal. You've got to up your game if you want to keep guys like me. Part of me says he wants to go to Kansas or Kentucky and win a national championship, get to a Final Four. Part of me thinks that maybe he wants to just go to the highest bidder, whoever that may be. If he ended up at Texas A&M or Ole Miss or something, that could be. I thought maybe he would want to go to Maryland or Georgetown and play at home. And so the biggest reason I think he's going to come back is if Hunter was going to leave, he would already have a destination. It's been a couple weeks. Everybody that knows he's out there, he's the biggest name. Everybody that would want to make a rush at him has already done it, and he has not committed to anyone. I know that he loves the roster that Michigan's added. There's pieces around him. There's depth at every position. That's why I think he's coming back, Sam. I could be completely wrong, but that's my prediction.
Yeah, well, Tim, most of your, no one's 100%, but most of your predictions, I give you credit, have turned out right. So, but I guess I have a little bit different take. I think Hunter got back to us, not necessarily, I don't know that that's necessarily indicative of the likelihood of him returning. I think it has more to do with how we treated him. We were always fair.
Yeah.
If he had something to say that was against the program, it's not like we editorialized or cut it out. We always aired it, right? We discussed it. When his NIL take was anti-Michigan, we didn't skewer him. We didn't keep that out of the broadcast. We broadcast it, and we talked about it. When he played poorly, we talked about that as well, but we didn't take gratuitous shots at him. We were always fair. And I think you being a player, Tim, I would imagine, what I try to do is approach guys, whether they be players or coaches, in ways in which I would, from a commentary standpoint, in ways in which I would approach them if I were talking to them face to face, which we do a lot of these guys. And I think we did that with Hunter. And I think more than anything, he appreciated that, which is why he got back to us. I think it was a sign of respect more than it was, hey, I'm coming back. Now, to your point, though, I think it's on the table. I think that just talking to people in the program, they think that it's a possibility. I haven't gotten heard from anyone yet that I've talked to anyway that thinks it's likely. Here's what I think Hunter's doing, just based on our conversations with him on this podcast. I think twofold. I think number one, I think Hunter's establishing his market value. I mean, you listen to what he said about NIL. Remember, he was talking about going after Terrence Shannon and other guys, and he was talking about how it goes. If you aren't big time with NIL, you aren't going to get guys in the portal. So I think obviously that's something that he is doing when he's in the portal talking to these teams. He's assessing the NIL, and if you're going to come back to Michigan, you kind of want to know, what are you measuring them against? This is me speculating. And then the other piece, also to your point, Tim, is I think he's looking around. Okay, Jet's going, Kobe's going. These are two guys. We went through a lot of growing pains this year just to get them to that point. And now they're out. Who are we going to have next year? And will it be the same kind of process again? Or are you going to put something together that I can win with? I think he's looking to see both of those things.
And he also loves Juwan Howard and the coaches. Everybody's poured into him. And he also is finally realizing he's probably not going to get drafted and be an NBA player. So he has to do everything he can right now to establish that market value and maximize his earning potential, because this is going to affect his ability to buy a house and get a car and, raise a family and put his kids through college. Like right now, he's right in the heart of his earning potential. And so I don't have a problem with him getting out there. I think it's actually smart business. I would love loyalty. I would love him saying, I want to have my number retired and be the all-time scoring leader and all that stuff. And he's almost got his degree. I think he's going to be back on campus this summer. That's saying a lot too. So no problems with what Hunter's doing. Kudos to him, actually.
Yeah, man. And so, look, I agree, and I should have said that what you just said too about his relationship with Juwan. I definitely think that is without question a lure for him coming back. But you also said you're kind of making a statement a bit. Yeah, I think this is kind of holding the roster management to some level of accountability, and then holding the NIL. Whoever is in control of whatever the number can be for Hunter, this kind of puts them on notice as well. I mean, there's a cost that comes. We were highly critical. Man, I won't put you in there. We question a lot. Could the Miami dynamic work? Right? Remember, they go and they get Nigel Pack, bring him into the fold, causes some issues with Isaiah Wong, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's gonna blow up the locker room." They were in the Final Four, Tim. I mean, Jim Larinaga figured it out. He figured out how to make it work. So it's not, necessarily something that's going to blow up your roster when you have guys kind of out there jockeying for NIL position. And I think he's very much in the mode, because tell me what you think about this, Tim. This might not be Hunter's last year in college. I mean, if you think about his financial upside in America, in the States, it might not ever be bigger than these next 2 years. If you assume that he's not guaranteed to be an NBA guy, can he make more money in the next 2 years, NIL wise, than he could ever make any 2 years in the G League? I think you can make the case that this could be, at least as far as American basketball is concerned, this might be, not definitely, not saying Hunter can't do it. Don't get it twisted. Not betting against the big fella, but he has to be thinking brass tacks and saying, what if the next 2 years are the max I can make, as far as ceiling is concerned, stateside. And if I'm going to make big dollars after this, I got to go overseas. Let me see how much I can get stateside while I can.
I agree with that. And I also think he's gonna be a multimillionaire. He's durable and he's strong and he's going to put up numbers wherever that is. I don't think I have any concerns about his livelihood, but as a 22-year-old, it does make sense, or 21, whatever he is. Attack today, get as much as you can, build your leverage for sure.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. I'll reiterate, the sentiment inside is it's not a done deal with Hunter being out of here. So if any fans, that's why you be careful when you're on social media and you're taking these shots. I say don't take shots at players anyway, but especially when the dude might be back. Like, I mean, come on, man. What are you doing? Ragging on the dude when he's not completely out the door. You shouldn't do it even if he is, but good grief, Tim. Don't push him out the door, right?
Yeah, no. There's always 10% of Twitter followers that say ridiculous things. Just ignore that 10-20% and focus on the others. Because I think most fans appreciate Hunter and know he's a really good player.
So additions, there have been a few. The first of which was Nimari Burnett, a guy who Michigan recruited twice over. Obviously, a Chicago-bred guy, knows his family knows Juwan going back. He originally goes to Texas Tech. He enters the portal. He's back out there again. Then he goes to Alabama, right? Third time's the charm for Michigan, right? This time, after being on a loaded Alabama team, he had some contribution there, but clearly not the contribution he wanted to have. And he's back in the portal. And he landed on Michigan. So he was first up. Tim, what did you think of the addition of Nimari Burnett?
So I think that Nimari Burnett is intriguing to me. He's somewhat unknown, around 6'4". So I would imagine when I try to project him at Michigan, I think he'll start. I think he'll probably play small forward. He's pretty strong and athletic. He's a McDonald's All-American, but I know him pretty well from Top 100 camp. So what I remember, and I did watch him because of the fact that I knew he was a Michigan target, and so I was pretty interested. Non-shooter, good driver and finisher, can be a good defender, and that's going to be important because Michigan had nobody last year to put on a Terrence Shannon or anybody that's a good scorer on the other team's perimeter. There was nobody Michigan had to say, you know what, why don't you just go lock him up for us for a little bit? And so I think that'll be a real key. And the other thing I worry about, and there's a lot of reasons why this happens, but for a highly regarded kid, he averaged 5 points a game. Okay. Can he score? Is he capable? Does he have more game than what we thought? Sometimes an injury can really, wreak havoc with you. You lose confidence from your coaches. You don't get much time. I mean, that's not easy. Maybe you're just playing behind somebody that's better than you. So I think it's a good pickup. And he's been at big programs. He's used to elite competition. So I'm anxious to see him play. And he epitomizes why I'm so excited about this season, because there's three guys that are coming in, not even including the freshmen, that I have no idea what direction. There are massive questions about each of them. And Nimari Burnett may be right at the top of that list.
Yeah, he fits an overall theme in this year's portal sort of push that I'll touch back on later, just more broadly. But specifically, when it comes to his contribution, I think the part that you highlighted, his defense, I think that is the part that I am most sure will translate. There was a piece that one of our national guys on 24/7 Sports wrote. Isaac Trotter does a great job. If you aren't over on the MichiganInsider.com, and he talked about what a good defender Nimari Burnett sort of flashed as. Really long armed, high IQ guy. Can move his feet, can stay in front of guys. You can't muscle him to the basket. The closest thing Michigan had to a strong defender was Kobe Buffkin. Absent that, who do you have on the perimeter that you can put on anyone right now and feel confident that, okay, he's going to slow someone down, to your point? Well, Nimari Burnett gives you that. The question mark comes on the other end of the floor. Can he be the offensive weapon that they had on the wings last year? And that's pure projection. There's nothing on college tape that suggests that. But projection-wise, 19.3% usage last year. Not a highly efficient three-point shooter in the low 30s, but he did have a few games where he had three or more threes in the contest, so he could get hot. What we know, Tim, is he can get downhill, he can finish through contact, put him in some ball screen action, and see with greater usage, can he be more of a volume offensive player? We don't know. Jury's out on that. But if at the very least, he gives you some additional defense on the wing, you at least wind up ahead of the game on that side. And if he just gives you something offensively, I mean, you got a lot to replace. He'll maybe give you a piece to that puzzle.
Yeah, and I was thinking of comparisons, and it's not a good one at all. But body wise, athleticism wise, driving wise, defense wise, I think that Nimari Burnett is like a Shawnee Brown without the perimeter jump shooting. He's just kind of that reliable guy that you think he at Wake Forest, Shawnee Brown was never really featured. He needed a change. He needed, whatever, maybe just being surrounded by a different type of player. And then he came in and showed a lot of things that we just didn't know he could do. I'm hopeful that Nimari Burnett will have the same kind of impact.
Yeah, I guess, and I'll draw on this distinction a little bit later. For as much as it was about a different stage, change of scenery, doing Sean D some good, and the way they used him, because he didn't really shoot threes. He certainly didn't shoot open threes at Wake Forest like he shot at Michigan, right? So he had a different opportunity, but he was looking for a bigger stage. And that's not the case with Nimari Burnett. I mean, he was on the number one team in the country for a majority of the year. It's not about a bigger stage. He got a little buried over there. So with more of an opportunity, does that lead to greater productivity? We'll talk about that more in depth later. But Caleb Love, big. Now, I guess he came after Trey Jackson. So let's go with Trey Jackson first. And to me, this is kind of like the sneaky good pickup, fit wise, skill set wise, coming home wise. For a Detroit native, goes to Mizzou, transfers to Seton Hall after a year. Tim, that first year they think he's going to have to sit out. The NCAA comes back and says, "Oh, you're eligible." He only plays a handful of games. But then year 2 at Seton Hall under Kevin Willard, you start to see him blossom. Here he is, this 6'10" guy that hit threes at a 37% clip. Right, he's averaging about 7 points a game. I think he started 18 or so games or something like that. But then there's a coaching change. Willard goes to Maryland and enters Shaheen Holloway, and the fit isn't the same for him. His minutes go down, his threes go down. It's just not the right fit. I feel like this edition is one where this could really open up. I think it's easier to project this being an opportunity that this dude really capitalizes upon in Ann Arbor.
Trey Jackson coming to Michigan makes me smile, Sam. And you know that I run the Michigan Elite 25 program for the best players from across the state. And Trey Jackson was one of our campers. And his senior year, I held a showcase at Ypsilanti High School. And it wasn't as much for, some of the high level kids because it was during a non-viewing period, so D1s weren't there. But some of the guys you may know that played at my showcase was Brandon Johns, Trevion Williams, Romeo Weems, Gabe Brown, Dave DeJulius, like really good players. And Trey Jackson was there, and he was just outstanding. He plays hard. Sam, he's really smart. I mean, those are things that sometimes when you're talking to a kid, you get a different perspective. He was very respectful. I liked his game a lot. 6'10", he's versatile. He can do three things really well. He can make a perimeter shot, which is going to be really important, especially if Hunter comes back. He can cover guards on the perimeter, which, that it reminds me a little bit of Musa. Musa was so raw. Trey Jackson's not as good as Musa, but he does some of the same things. And he may be the guy on Michigan's roster with the most to prove. And so the other thing that's kind of interesting is that Michigan has really struggled finding somebody that can play next to Hunter Dickinson. And even if it's not Hunter Dickinson, and it doesn't matter. Terrace reads the same way. Like, big guys that clog the lane a little bit out of offense. Michigan put Brandon Johns out there and Terrence Williams and Musa and Caleb. None of those guys were able to effectively play with Hunter Dickinson because none of them was a reliable three-point shooter. I think Trey Jackson gets me pretty excited, Sam. I think he's going to be really good.
Yeah, I think he's a great fit. You think about when T. Will's at the 4, yeah, he could feed the post, but he just was not as reliable a 3-point threat as you wanted him to be. When he played next to Terrace, gave you some extra things on the defensive end, but on the offensive end, like you said, I mean, Hunter had to play in the high post. If he was on the block, then you had basically Terrace was a rim runner. He was he flashed to the basket. He was a cutter. But not really a guy who was going to operate really effectively away from the rim. That might be a part of his game that grows. Point being, man, his versatility, like you said, he can really hit a three. He has some athleticism, so he can finish at the rim. This is not his first rodeo, so he's played a lot of basketball. He's a switchable defender. That is very, very valuable for Michigan, and he's coming home.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He's coming home to the D. So he's going to play in front of family. that has to do a thing for him as well, leaving a situation where through no fault of his own, the fit just changed on him. Sometimes it's not against Gene Holloway. I mean, some guys just don't fit you as well. And, going from Willard to Holloway with just looking at it from afar and remembering the kind of game that Trey Jackson had against Michigan when they beat Michigan, remember? I just feel like this is a situation where the change of scenery will do him really, really well and benefit Michigan. Easy to project it being a positive addition. That
Yeah.
brings us to Caleb. Go ahead, Tim.
No, he's gonna be really excited to excel. And one thing I want to throw out there, and I don't know this part of the equation. Sometimes it's better for guys to go far away from home, and there's a lot of pressure at home. There's a lot of people you want to get away from. I don't know if that's the case or not, but it's something to be aware of. Like I want to point out that sometimes it's great to come home, and sometimes it's not so great. So it's just something to keep an eye on.
Which brings us to Caleb Love, a guy who was one of the stars of North Carolina's run to the championship game last year, right? They come back the next season. Baycott's back. Caleb Love, after a couple of games, remember what he did to in Coach K's last game. He had a great game against UCLA in that tournament as well. I mean, he was looking like a dude, and you were feeling like coming back another year, like, okay, now I'm that guy. He's gonna take it to another level, and just his efficiency and the efficiency of that team didn't get better. You can argue it got a lot worse, and they went from being the number one team in the country preseason wise to a team that doesn't even make the tournament. So he's leaving a situation. What he said, go rewrite your story, kid. That's what he said in his tweet, Tim, which tells you he's leaving a situation that, there was some disharmony there. There was a narrative maybe that was cast upon him, or maybe that he earned, that he's looking to shake in coming to Michigan. And certainly there are a lot of shots available for him now at Michigan for him to be able to come in and do that.
Yes, you laid it out pretty well, Sam. I didn't know Caleb Love in high school. I think he might have been more of a USA basketball guy. I don't believe he was at the top 100. Sometimes when all of a sudden there's 100 guys in front of you, you kind of lose track and you focus on some guys, not others. But there's no question that he's extremely talented. Yeah, just a big time producer with pro skills. He loves to score, and I think that's important, especially if Hunter's not there. Like I kept thinking, if Hunter's not here, how does this team get to 60 points? How do we avoid being Rutgers?
Right.
And there's a couple of things about Caleb, if we're going to be completely honest, on offense. This is a guy that holds the ball for a long time, and I always like a player. You catch it, you've got 2 seconds to either shoot or make a move. If you don't, then just move it. North Carolina lacked chemistry this year, like Michigan lacked chemistry. For whatever reason, the players didn't look like they were getting along. And sometimes that happens with big time success. Their NCAA run the previous year, all of a sudden different agendas can pop up. Mm-hmm. Also, Hubert Davis has a lot of coaching strengths, but toughness and discipline and accountability is not one of them. He gives his guys total freedom. And I'm looking at Caleb Love, and what was the comment he made? Go do your new thing, or what?
Rewrite your story, kid.
Yeah, rewrite your story, kid. Like that's what he's here to do. And I think that Juwan and his staff need some tough love on Caleb. To use his last name, some tough love, because the scouts want to see if he's coachable. Here's another thing. If he ever makes it to the NBA, there's maybe 50 or 60 guys in the NBA that are stars. Like they get the ball, they get the plays run to them, they get 15 shots a game. Everybody else is a role player that has to prove that they can play away from the ball. Like, can you make a hard cut to get open? Can you set a screen and cause a switch, and all of a sudden you get the ball? He needs to show that he can be a teammate, I still think he's going to average 18 points a game. I still think he's going to be on one of the all Big Ten teams. I do think he's a pretty good leader. Like he's got some alpha dog in him, and that's valuable too. When you walk into the Breslin, you need somebody on your team that's like Hunter Dickinson. Hunter walked in, you'd say, I'm with him. Okay. I think that Caleb Love has played on the biggest stages and he's come up big. This guy is going to be really, really good, but he also needs some work and some accountability in his life.
Yeah, you raise a ton of great points, Tim. This is a different portal dynamic for Michigan. You think about the guys over the last couple of years, from Shawnee Brown, Mike Smith, Devontae Jones, Jalen Llewellyn, guys that were looking for a bigger stage, right? Guys that were maybe at a lower level of basketball that needed an opportunity to play up a level.
Wow, Sam, I like that. I hadn't thought of that. That's really good.
It's different than what they have in this portal endeavor, right? You're talking about guys who are coming from situations that, for whatever reason, weren't going the way that they planned, right? You had a great opportunity at North Carolina. It was on a really, really good team. You had a really, really good team at Alabama, right? Coaching changed a little bit different with Trey Jackson. Coaching changed there, right? Reason for him to leave as a grad transfer. My point in bringing this up is I think the coaching job is different, right? Because, part of any coaching any player is managing expectations, right? Whether it's a freshman, it could be an upper class, doesn't matter. You gotta see what their expectation is and how does that fit into the team dynamic. Well, now you got some guys who come in with some very clear goals, right? Based on their experience in college. Caleb Love is looking to go to the NBA. How do you fit his individual goal into your team dynamic? Because if it's me, I'm no coach, never have been a coach, but my point to anyone coming in is this is Dougie's team. Dougie's stirring the coffee. He's going to be the guy who is initiating the offense, and we play off of that. Or Hunter. It could be if Hunter comes back, we're running the offense through Hunter, and we're playing off of that. So how do we do a better job of that with you, Caleb, than was at play last year with Baycott? And what do I mean? I'm not saying I don't know exactly how that dynamic went awry. I just know he wasn't an efficient offensive player last year. So how do you improve that efficiency coming into a similar situation if Hunter comes back? The idea is you want to be better than you were. How do you achieve that understanding? He has a goal of, I got to show that I'm ready to go to the NBA. And same thing with Nimari Burnett. He got less of an opportunity at Alabama. How do you manage that expectation and have him flow within what you're trying to do as a team? This is a very interesting challenge for Yohan, because you got to manage the expectations of the players. You got to manage the expectations of their families coming in. I mean, this is not just some plug and play scenario. Role definition is vitally important on any team, but especially when you're adding transfers into this mix. And I think it's going to be one of Yohan's biggest challenges for this team.
Okay, so I'm going to make a couple of comments, and I want to start it off by saying that Doug was incredible last year as a freshman. The way that he stepped in, he stayed healthy, he was durable, he did a fantastic job. He's got a bright future. This is Hunter Dickinson's team.
But I mean, I said that.
No,
I said that if Hunter leaves, if Hunter comes back, it's Hunter Dickinson's team.
No. So the second point to that, if Hunter leaves, this is Caleb Love's team, I think, and it wouldn't surprise me if Jalen Llewellyn, who last year, if he would have been healthy, would have probably been the starter, and Doug would have played a lot less. I think I think that there's a very good chance, because they've got some great depth at the guard position, that Doug's role decreases a bit and his scoring average decreases a bit.
Yeah.
That doesn't take away anything about his role. There's just more options. And I could be wrong. He might become a star, and his jump shot was so much better than I expected, and his floor leadership, and he has an unselfish attitude. Like, I'm not taking anything away. There's two veteran guards that have a lot of experience that are going to be there sharing a lot of that with him.
See, and so this is not me saying that Dougie is a star player or that Dougie is even as good as Caleb Love. Caleb Love has established himself as a better college player than Doug McDaniel. Don't confuse what I'm saying here.
Mm-hmm.
It is hard for a guy to come in and know the culture of your program. The hard for a guy to come in and know the tendencies of his teammates. Hard for a guy to come in and know the scheme. The reason why I talk about Dougie, this being Dougie knows the scheme, he knows the coaching staff, he knows the remaining players. I mean, he is the guy that's going to be here beyond next year. So if you're looking to maintain some semblance of a program and not just the team, it would behoove you to be nurturing that along the way. Is what I said. Look, I haven't coached the team, but that's my thought process in saying, all right, who that's not to say that he won't be your number one offensive option, Caleb Love. But as far as who's bringing the ball up, who's initiating the offense, who's looking to the sideline for the play and getting us all set up, who's carrying over our culture, I'm looking at Doug McDaniel as being the guy that is the best candidate for that. Here's one issue that I saw. Caleb Love is not a lead guard. If you give him the ball and say, go score, fine. But if you give him the ball and say, okay, I want you to set up teammates, I don't think that's his game, Tim. And I think you're forcing a square peg in a round hole if you ask him to do that.
Yeah. The Michigan offense is going to really look a lot like an NBA offense next year. And I think that the building of culture and establishing DNA and everybody knowing the offense, everybody's going to know the offense. You could put Nimari Burnett at the point guard position and it's not going to matter, because it's just a matter of dribbling up and going into a positionless offense. I think that, it's kind of fun, Sam. I want to throw out what I see as Michigan's starting lineup. Tell me what you think. And then it'll lead somewhere at the end that you'll understand. So I think Doug will start at point guard and Jalen will be his primary backup. And I could see them splitting the minutes right down the middle. True or false?
We'll see. I mean,
Yeah.
I have to see more Jalen Llewellyn before I say I'm ready to split those minutes down the middle. Surely Dougie's going to need a backup, but based on what I saw last year, I wouldn't split it 50-50.
Yeah. Let's remember this, because I think it's an interesting question. Caleb Love's your 2 and George Washington's your 3.
Wow.
I'm sorry. George Washington is like that third guard. Caleb Love and Nimari Burnett are your 2 and your 3,
Right.
and George Washington backs both of them up.
Okay, I go for that.
Okay. Maybe Jace. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what his role will be, but he could play some minutes there too. So at that point, major question once again. Your power forward spot, Trey Jackson and Terrence Williams are your 2 guys. And right now, do you see a role for Will Cheddar? Do you see a role for Greg Glenn?
So right now, Trey Jackson's my 4. He's my starting 4 man. I think that his length, his versatility on both ends of the floor just add more than any of the other guys are physically capable of bringing to the table. Definitely still see a role for T. Will, and one that he's probably more comfortable with. This is why when we had this discussion last year and you had so many people ready to shoo him out of the program, look, you got to have some bench players. You got to have some guys that give you toughness and grit and some energy off the bench. I think that watching him in that role the year prior, he looked just much more comfortable than when they thrust him into the starting lineup and put more expectations upon him. So I actually think that sliding him into a lesser role in terms of minutes and offensive expectation is going to serve his overall game and ultimately serve the team well. I think Will Cheddar becomes a spot player for the team. Yeah, he plays. There'll be some nights where he gets 5-10 minutes, depending on what they need, depending on what the matchup is. There are going to be other nights where he doesn't play. I don't know what Greg Glenn is, Tim. Just based on looking at this roster, being play it by ear. I don't see minutes right now off the rip for him based on what they had, though. But I'm not in practice every day to know what he looks like in practice.
Yeah, and Kyatt too. 6'9". We don't know. He doesn't look 6'9" to me, but we have to keep an eye on him. So the last position is center, and hopefully it's Hunter. And if Terrace Reed is your backup center and Hunter's your center, that's the best in the country.
Yeah.
But if one of those guys, if Hunter doesn't come back, then that opens up a lot. Do you know anything about Papa Kante?
Yeah. So first of all, I like Papa as a guy who coming in the door would be an asset defensively. I really like him as a guy who gets up and down the floor. You aren't going to beat him in transition, so that's not something you're going to have to drill into him as a rookie. I think he's a switchable defender. That's one of his strengths. In that, yeah, man, you could go out and be completely versatile defensively because he can move his feet and stay with some guards and wings off of picks, and then he also is a good help side defender. He can come over and block a few shots, but offensively, more of a work in progress. Rudimentary post skills. Started to take more threes, in the last year or so, but not what you would call a strength of his game. To me, it's going to be more about a guy who gives you a defensive presence as a putback guy on offense, as opposed to a guy who you toss it down to and say, make something happen. A guy who gives you maybe, 10 or so minutes as a backup center, 10, 12 minutes if it winds up being Terrace and him. Question becomes admissions. There are some hurdles to clear, the specifics of which they have not been really detailed. I just know that there are some things that they're trying to work through.
Sometimes we can figure out answers without actually talking to anybody or reading anything. And the fact that Yohan Traore is being recruited by Michigan and Olivier Nkamhoua is being recruited by Michigan, those are two guys that could really help out if all of a sudden Papa Kante does not come. You need somebody as your backup center for sure, regardless of what Hunter does. And so to read that those guys are talking to Michigan's coaches tells me that things may not work out there.
Yeah, so I think they will recruit both of those guys, even with Papa. Let's say even if they get Papa. I mean, in this day and age, scholarship limits are kind of not as much of a hindrance. Sounds like they have some leeway. You can move some things around, possibly with Jace, that would make some things happen. Because Nkamhoua is intriguing in this way. If they were to get Olivier Nkamhoua, he's my 4-man, Tim.
So what do you tell Trey Jackson? Trey Jackson just committed to you coming home.
I hear you. I mean, you both will play. But man, what do you
say? What about Terrence Williams then? What do you say to him?
I mean, you have some minutes. Look, competition. Iron sharpens iron, as they say. And Nkamhoua's offensive versatility is on a level even beyond Trey Jackson's. Mm-hmm. I watched him in that Duke game, Tim, in the Sweet 16. And man, this dude was lethal from the mid-range.
I saw him kill Texas.
I mean, he shoots three. He doesn't shoot a lot of threes, but the threes that he does shoot, he shoots them at a good clip. Right. So he's also on the glass too. He's a strong-bodied defender, gives you some athleticism, and some rebounding in there. I just think he's more complete right now than Trey Jackson. So Trey Jackson still plays a crucial and pivotal role to you. I think the guy who would suffer the most in that dynamic would be T. Will, where
No
where
doubt.
now he's getting probably the leftover minutes from those two, and then trying to squeeze some minutes in at the 3 spot. Right. So
That's what I would hope. But still, he's your captain, and he's shown loyalty to the program, and it's a cutthroat business these days. It really is.
look, they're recruiting Olivier Nkamhoua even if Papa Kante comes. So clearly they are not just taking a pass, saying they're doing everything they can to improve the competition on the roster and ultimately its productivity. Now, Yohan is a bit different in that that's purely a 5. There was some talk in high school that Yohan could play the 4. And you remember at the top 100 camp, he took a few threes, right? And he actually looked comfortable taking a few threes, but that's not his game per se. What I like about him, Tim, is he is the Energizer Bunny. Whether it's in the half court, on the glass, running the floor, he's going to be a finisher. He's going to be an outstanding defender. He's going to be a jackrabbit. But offensively, I think we have to wait to see. He's a more athletic piece to the puzzle than Papa Kante would be, and obviously a more experienced piece to the puzzle than Papa Kante would be. So you would feel better about your backup center situation if it were Yohan Traore compared to, say, a Papa Kante.
Yeah, and I will say this, that for Traore, he averaged 2 points a game at Auburn. That's not an easy place for a big man to play. They've got guards that Walker Kessler is the best rookie big man in the NBA, and he did almost nothing at Auburn. Like that's a tough place for big men to play. So
Good for Walker.
I
I'm a
just
Walker fan.
yeah. So it's really interesting, Sam. It really is. And next time we get together, we're gonna say, wow, I missed on that one, or but that was a great cut. Like we're throwing darts up against the
Yeah.
board.
So here's a question for you, Tim. Let's say you had your pick. Now they're further down the runway, if you will, with Kamwa. They just had a Zoom with him. That hasn't happened with Yohan Traore yet, but it sounds like that might possibly be in the works. I know there's been contact with Yohan Traore, but here you have a guy who is going into his second year in college, clearly on the early end of his development. You got to feel like if you're Juwan Howard, you can really mold that guy. Kamwa is without question a better player right now, would be a more significant contributor right now, but you only have him 1 year. Which way would you go if you were the king of the force, if you were Juwan Howard, Tim, and you could choose?
It's nearly an impossible scenario because Juwan has to get the best talent he can. The truth is, there are guys that are going to become available on the portal where you'd love to have an extra spot to pick them up. After they go to summer school and finish up their degree, a lot of players are going to do that. You may have access to players that are better than the ones you've taken and fit your system, and you might have them longer. I don't know what the best strategy is, but the fact that Trey Jackson committed to Michigan a little bit earlier than Nkamhoua, that's a tough one because you've already made a commitment to the guys in your program and the guys that have already committed to you. I think your hands are somewhat tied.
So you would go Traore.
No, I wouldn't.
So
I
you would
w-
go count. So you wouldn't do either then.
no, I wouldn't do either.
Ah, I gotcha.
Now, if I mean, what happens if you take Kamwa and you've already got Jackson and Terrace Reed's your center, and Papa Kante gets into school, and Hunter Dickinson says, "Yeah, I'm back, guys." What do you do then? You've got 6 or 7 guys at the 4 and the 5.
Hey, that's what coaches get paid the big bucks for, right?
You're
That's what they
right.
get millions of dollars for, right? To figure that out. Remember that going back to the beginning of this podcast when we were talking about all the problems they said Jim Larinaga was going to have with Nigel Pack coming in, and he got all this big money from the NIL dude down there. I can't remember, Ruiz, I think is his name, from Life Wallet. And Isaiah Wong comes up and says, wait a minute, this dude wasn't even with this squad. And he's getting more than me? No, I'm not with that. That's a problem. I need more. And the Life Wallet guy says, no, I got to deal with you already done. You stay with what you got. I'm not renegotiating your deal. And the deal I got with Pat is the deal I have with Pat. Seems like a recipe for disharmony, right? Jim Larinaga figured that out. So my point is, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's a given. I'm saying these dudes paid a lot of money to figure out those kinds of problems.
Yeah. I just think there's a problem having too many big guys. And
I hear you.
yeah.
I'm not discounting. Tim, you know basketball. You know more basketball than you forgot more basketball than I know. So I'm not saying that you're wrong. Yeah, absolutely. It would be an issue. It would be a problem. I call it a good problem to have to figure out, especially compared to last year where you didn't have enough guys.
But I think that if you look at this team, let's talk a little bit about what the lineup looks like. I think that they're definitely better on defense, especially on the perimeter. Improved depth at every spot, especially the point guard. A massive concern about my perimeter shooting as a team. I think that would be a huge issue.
Yeah.
I think that there'll be a bigger, stronger, tougher, grittier team inside. The biggest question I would have, though, how's the chemistry? Because college basketball is guard driven, and big guys are not as important in the game today. So if you've got 5 big guys that are all really good and capable, how do you split up those minutes? I just don't see a jumbo look being effective nowadays.
Hey, so another question for you. I know we got to get out of here because we're running long. Let's say Hunter, as he looks around, NIL is better chance to win. He thinks a championship is better someplace else, and he goes. If you got a Nkamhoua, could you play Nkamhoua at the 5?
Absolutely.
Would he be your 5? And what I mean, let me be more specific. Could Nkamhoua be your 5 as the starter, and you bring Terrace off the bench?
So I think that Trey Jackson played some center at Seton Hall, didn't he? And that might be a good option too. And then Nkamhoua's your 4-man. Mm-hmm. I like that.
That could work. That could work. Hopefully they have to figure that part out with Hunter. With Hunter coming back again, just to get back to that point. Look, make it clear we're speculating. Hunter, we both texted him. He politely passed on coming back on the podcast, and he said, man, y'all have been stand-up with me, stand-up guys. Appreciate you. But I'm just going through my process and not really talking about it. And so we've had to speculate what he's thinking based in part on our conversations with him and then talking to folks on the inside who say they think there's a chance that Hunter comes back. So I don't think that's coming from nowhere, Tim. They must have been given some indication that that's a good possibility.
I hope so. I think that if Hunter comes back, and this is a team that's, top 3 or 4 in the Big Ten next year, that's a big jump.
Yeah, man. Time will tell. Certainly this portal activity bolsters their case. Like, you got Caleb Love. I think Nkamhoua, I'd be interested to see what his reaction to that would be too. So time will tell. We obviously will have plenty of opportunity to discuss further on the Basketball Insider. If you like this podcast, be sure to rate it. Be sure to review it. Be sure to tell all your friends about it. They can find it wherever they get their podcasts. That's Google, Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes, you name it. If you watch us on YouTube, be sure to like the video. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. That way, whenever we put up a new episode or any new content, you'll get a notification. And, of course, if you want to keep track of all the portal activity, right, all the recruiting activity, Coach is about to get out on the road, get out on the circuit, the live period upon us. You got EYBL starting up, the Adidas circuit, Under Armour circuit. There was even a New Balance circuit. Now, I saw that. It's like, New Balance has a circuit? They do. We will be out covering it all over the MichiganInsider.com. Again, pennies a day get you in. And once you become a full paying member after a month, you also get access to Paramount Plus. Don't miss out over on the MichiganInsider.com. That'll do it for us on this edition of the Michigan Basketball Insider.